What I believe with personalization is the juice has to be worth the squeeze.
Welcome to the Ecommerce Toolbox Expert Perspectives, a podcast by Noibu, where we explore the elite strategies and cutting-edge insights with our expert guests. Get ready to propel your e-commerce business to the next level.
Welcome to another episode of the Ecommerce Toolbox Experts Perspective. Joining us today, we have Breanna Fowler, all the way from Austin, Texas. Welcome, Bree.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Awesome. I always like to start off by learning a bit more about your role and your career path. So, Bree, you're the head of global online experience at Dell, which is spanning over many different regions, countries, over 32 countries. So maybe talk to us a bit about your career path and how you got into your role, and maybe a bit about your role today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in a few different industries leading up into Dell. Started out in higher education, did some time working in fashion and apparel, all in a marketing context, then into hospitality. Very interesting, differences between each of these industries, but also so many similarities. You're working on a customer's journey and experience and purpose of visit. When I was in apparel, it was at a time when not everybody had an e-commerce site, and it was considered, very innovative that we had one. So I got to dabble in early e-commerce. Then when I moved over to Dell, it took a role that was, again, a split between e-commerce and marketing. I was doing a lot in the co-marketing space. So at the time, Dell was selling a lot of TVs and home consumer electronics, a lot of smart home. We've peeled back on that since, but at the time, it was a really big part of the business. So I was brought in to grow some of the co-marketing there. You'd have market development funds from some of the TV brands and, home electronics like Google Nest. And I came in to do some of the go-to-market planning. So anything that they were doing to drive traffic to Dell.com to promote their products, that really fell within my remit. Spent some time doing that, grew into some of the relationships with our OEM software partners. So folks like Microsoft and Adobe, McAfee security software. Everything that I did was really central to driving that online business and how we use performance marketing to bring traffic into the site. So whether it's prospecting ads or articles that were written within Tom's Guide that we would go and amplify about the product assortment. So I got to see really the full scope of things. And then within a later role, really supporting OEM software, I got to kind of see the offline side of the business with the sales groups. And that's such an interesting piece too, because you're learning about some of the customer problems really from the people who are boots on the ground, talking to customers on the phone. And often that drove a lot of intelligence for, hey, how do we take that and improve the online experience? When our organization was going through some changes and we were looking to unify the global online experience, I was brought back in to lead that experience transformation. For many years, Dell was operating in a place where each regional team sort of had their own e-commerce site within their remit, and they were really treated like separate sites, separate stores. And it was interesting that at the time we chose to grow this organization and bring everything under a unified global footprint, I think I was new in role for maybe 2 months, and then the world shut down and COVID, right? So a very interesting time frame, and it actually set us up to do this really well because there was something really important that was happening at a global level. And boy, was it important to have a unified global message out to customers for, hey, here's how we're reacting. Here's what we're doing to support. Having that message really clean and clear and as transparent as possible, it kind of gave us the leverage we needed to say, hey, it's time to think about this globally and from a unified perspective. So all of these areas that I supported through the business sort of stepped me into the next phase of thinking really holistically about not just customer journeys coming from offline into online, but really how are we reacting to the unique needs of the business for all these different regions when we have really a unified goal. Now, COVID sort of fake that goal for us, and change the focus a bit. But, ultimately it's really how do we do the right thing by the customers, by Dell, by our partners. And so we've looked at, really transforming that online business from there.
That's really interesting. So obviously there's billions of dollars of turnover, 32 countries. Maybe talk to us a bit, some of the biggest challenges, and maybe some of the things that surprised you around the unification, because obviously that's just a lot of different context.
Yeah. So, we have 220 plus countries with a website of sorts, right? 32 or so of those are really transacting and have more of a full commerce experience. And you sort of carve those out into subgroups and market focuses, right? There's probably 5 top markets that get the lion's share of the attention and focus. And then you've got, really cultural differences happening across EMEA, across LATAM, the Americas. And it's really easy to get caught up in going for what works for the US because it's the biggest market, right? And it's so important for us. And one of the things that I really love about the way Dell approaches the evolution of the business and the site experience is everything is grounded in testing and results. We are a very data heavy company. And at times we struggle between, are we data driven or are we data informed? Right. And I want to make sure it's data informed, that we're doing the right thing and using that data to kind of propel us forward. So we look a lot at what are those nuances. Now, the site experience itself, the journey, the structure is going to be really similar across all countries' experiences, but you'll see nuances in content. You'll certainly see imagery and product learn content that's different because some of the products really are different. An XPS made in Brazil is going to be different than an XPS made for a US market. And so we've got to be able to tell that story and cover those nuances differently, but still have a unified architecture so that when our IT teams are creating new technology and new user experience, we can deploy that and scale that across regions. So we do a lot of testing, a lot of learning, a lot of adjusting. We really try to fail fast. When we're taking risks and deploying something new, we want to learn, we want to iterate, and we want to make sure that we're constantly improving. I would say one of the greatest areas where we do try to focus and cater to the regions is in the payments landscape. As we roll out new payment types, for example, we just launched Klarna in a few of our European markets. Great fit for that market. The flexible payment types is something we've really been lacking in that area. And so something that we've catered for them, where we don't just peanut butter spread that across every region, right? We launch it where it makes sense. And in the same thing, there's really nuanced payment types that only are active in certain markets and really unlock certain opportunities. So we try to be really close to what's happening in the market, what's happening culturally, what's resonating, and make sure that we allow ourselves the flexibility to tell the product story and reach our customers, but also have a scalable infrastructure. And it's difficult, right? It's not easily done. This is, something that we even have to learn how to get out of our own way on this sometimes. But it's been one of the things I'm proudest of with Dell is just watching us transform. And every time we've taken a unified experience, launched something globally that maybe some of the regional teams were hesitant about or had, concerns, how's this going to resonate? More often than not, they were surprised to see how well actually these experiences resonated. And I think that's a testament to our rigorous testing and making sure that we're really getting this in front of customers and learning and evolving based on customer feedback.
No, I love that. And maybe talk to us a bit about how you define success for these customer journeys. Like, is there a KPI, a metric? How do you outside of sales kind of measure if it's working or not?
Yeah. Outside of the URM, the units revenue margin and site conversion, which, of course is a piece of it. we look a lot at customer data and customer feedback. So our CSAT surveys are huge for us. We also have what we call a VOCAS, which is just voice of customer as a service. And we get through that a lot of verbatim feedback from customers that give us a ton of insight, not only about the products, which, when we get product feedback from customers, that goes into the product group, right? That goes into the people that are building the PCs and, their process to making and launching changes. Of course, it's a much longer timeline to realization than what we do in online. But we take a lot of that feedback to heart. When we're looking at behaviors on site, I love to look at where are people moving through the journey? Where are they getting stuck? What's the forward movement, backward movement? These are really signals of confusion behavior. Or if we're seeing an increase in search and masthead utility, right? That may not be a good thing. That may mean somebody can't find what they're looking for. So we do a lot of analysis around how customers are moving through the site experience. We also have to keep in mind there's multiple purposes of visit. So we serve a consumer just as much as we serve small, medium, and large enterprise. And so, buying cycles are different. Consumer shopping for a gaming device is going to be very different than a company looking for infrastructure and services. And in that way, we try to look also at what are those common paths and, are there digital twins that we can sort of identify to say, hey, this is a learn path, this is an enterprise path, this is a consumer path, and make sure that we're making the adjustments needed for those unique purposes of visit. Luckily for me, I have some very talented PhD behavioral scientists that help work on some of that journey mapping and help us go to market very intelligently.
That's cool. And I don't think it would be a podcast in 2024 if we weren't talking about AI. So I'm curious. I know Michael Dell's been very much on the record talking about how he thinks AI is really big. How are you folks thinking about it in your specific context?
Yeah, it's really become such a household word, right? Everybody's been talking about AI. The thing for me is, AI itself is not new, right? This has been around for a long time. I think it's just become, so socially prevalent because there's so many use cases, right? You've got end consumer, up to large enterprise, just like, what we serve in Dell.com. Not only are we looking to build infrastructure for AI processing, but we're also manufacturing end user, what we call AI PCs, a loose definition, because that could be AI on, in, for, with, right? And then, also in the e-commerce side, we're fortunate. Not only are we manufacturing these servers and infrastructure and heavy compute devices, but we're also leveraging AI in terms of how we personalize a site experience, how we map out journeys. Some of the work those behavioral scientists are doing is going to ladder us up to be able to personalize journeys and content across the site in a meaningful way. No more are we really able to use, third-party customer data to target customers, right? Like lots of legislation changing in that space. And so we've got to look at what are these common paths and I use the term digital twin, but common journeys that customers follow on the site, and how do we use some of that predictive analytics and insight to create messaging that is going to resonate with that customer for their purpose of visit. One of the things that I've been talking to the team about a lot, we still handle a lot of co-marketing through my organization. So it's always come full circle back to me. But the work that we do in partnership with Microsoft, with Intel, Qualcomm, AMD, really good example of, hey, I've got to be able to target messages to customers that are shopping for specific devices. And the Qualcomm customer is going to be very different than the AMD or the Intel customer, right? And so I need to know what are the best places to land those messages that are going to get that customer to the place where they're confident enough to make that purchase and convert, and what's the right place to deliver those value propositions and key selling points. A lot of what AI and ML is driving is our ability to do that really seamlessly and with high confidence.
I love that. And you mentioned a lot of the key things I wanted to chat about next relative to like personalization. And then to your point, data basically data has been harder to grab, like first party data has been harder to get. So now leaning on AI a bit for personalization. What's kind of the personalization project that you've worked on that you're most proud of?
It's really interesting. Personalization. What I believe with personalization is the juice has to be worth the squeeze, right? There are so many things that we can do to create these one-to-one bespoke experiences where your Dell.com is different from my Dell.com. And maybe the future will get us there, right? Maybe that will be the new paradigm of e-commerce, is that everybody's got their completely custom catered journey. Where I think the real value comes in is when we can identify user types by behaviors. The way that an IT decision maker comes into the site and the things that they're looking at, they're going to be heavier interested in the blog, the thought leadership articles, some of the white papers that we produce, and industry studies. Consumers could be coming in through social channels. So what's your entry point on the site? What's the referring traffic source? Where are you coming from? A lot of that will help us identify what are those customer types and how do we personalize their journey. One of the things I'm really most proud of, it's not terribly complex, but one of the big redesign projects that we did was for the homepage for Dell.com. And we introduced what we call our warm states or soft, identification of customers. You may not be authenticated, but we've captured a cookie on your prior visit. We understand what you last looked at. And the team really spent a lot of time deep diving into what are those most helpful features, or where are customers going next. They developed a couple of features to elevate. Hey, here's the last product you viewed. Here's support. And by the way, this is the service tag for the PC you're browsing on. A lot of this utility was available through eSupport or through your account, but surfacing that into the homepage to make sure that as you come in through the front door of Dell.com, we get you where you want to be next. It was a really great effort. And I loved the collaboration between all the different teams that it required to bring this to life. Now it's just standard operating procedure for us to personalize these warm states. And at the time it was so new, so different. And it really took a lot of time to get people comfortable with, let's go and serve this content. Let's personalize in this way. But we saw the return. We saw that people were getting to their purpose of visit. And it was really gratifying to see, not only are people moving forward to the site, but site conversions going up. We're seeing better CSAT scores across the site, right? All those things, a spillover effect of being able to deliver helpful links and helpful content in front of the customer. And I think that's where personalization is really valuable, is when it's helpful, when it provides a shortcut, and when it's not creepy, to be honest, right? Sometimes you look at an ad on your phone and you're going, wow, they were listening to every conversation I just had. Here's the ad for the hot tub, and I was just talking to somebody about a hot tub. And, that to me is a little bit invasive. But if it's, hey, that's right, that was the last product I looked at, right? That's just helpful. And so there's a fine line there between creepy and helpful. And I try to keep the teams, balanced on that, because there is an ethic to it as well.
No, I'm fully aligned. And as we look to wrap up, Breanna, I'm curious, what are some of the top trends for 2025 and how you kind of see enterprise retailers operating and looking to kind of best serve their clients?
Yeah, I've got a lot of former colleagues in the industry. It's interesting. We have some very careful conversations. Two of my prior colleagues now lead the business at Lenovo and HP respectively. And so we have some careful conversations around what we're seeing. But it looks like everybody is feeling the economic factors, right? Everybody's very aware that we're going to go into some future state where policies and tariffs are going to change. The cost of doing business is going to change. I think there's been a very keen eye at what does your technology stack look like, and are you efficient with that? There were so many new companies and startups that were born out of the last 5 to 10 years of just growth in digital and e-commerce. And I'm seeing a real consolidation of not only just by acquisition service providers sort of bringing this all under one roof, but also companies going and looking and saying, hey, do we really need 5 different sources of data and analytics that kind of get us to the same answer? And how are we rationalizing what are those tools and utilities that we're investing in? We're doing a lot of that at Dell and constantly evaluating who are the partners. Do we have the best in class solutions? What are those right vendors to get us into the future? And where are we investing in best solutions in market versus things that we customize and build in-house? I'm definitely seeing a shift for us to going to what's available best in market. And some of my peers are also looking at, hey, how do we move faster with what's best available, shrink our tech stack to what's most critical and going to drive the business forward and deliver the best ROI. We look a lot at product detail pages, and I was just in a review looking at some of the content there. And accessibility is really important for us. We're always evaluating our pages to make sure that we have experiences that rank high on those accessibility factors. Working on condensing some of the content, making sure it's more digestible. And so every time we look at a PD page, you see the most engaged with content tends to be, top and bottom of the page. And there's this sort of mid section that, people are sort of glossing over. And I feel that same way about the tech stack where, you've got really high value, big, robust features and maybe some, inexpensive sort of small partners that we're using for things. And then there's a lot of junk in the middle, right? And how do we kind of collapse that, clean up, and have a more strategic focus, right? Where are we going to see the business grow? A lot of companies went through big financial gains, based on just market changes and behavior coming out of COVID. For us, certainly we saw a lot of PC buying as people were starting to remote work, and then it dropped off significantly. And you saw that decline in the market. And, there was a time where everybody's, high-fiving, look at our financials, we're winning in the market. And so we're spinning off all these new software solutions and signing up for every analytics partner under the sun. And now we're going, hey, do we really need all that? Is it really driving us forward? Is it allowing us to do something different? Is this data actionable? And if it's not, let's call a spade and let's clean house a little.
I agree. So no, I love it. That's great feedback. Love the podcast. Really want to thank you for taking the time, Bree. And if anyone wants to reach out, where can they find you? LinkedIn's probably the best place.
Yeah. I'm at LinkedIn. I think I'm LinkedIn /Breanna N. Fowler, whatever the short URL is there. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks again, Bree. Really appreciate your time.
The Ecommerce Toolbox Expert Perspectives is brought to you by Noibu. To find out more about Noibu and how we can help you debug your e-commerce site and rocket your revenue, visit www.noibu.com. That's Noibu.com. And then make sure to search for the Ecommerce Toolbox Expert Perspectives on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found, and click subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Noibu, thanks for listening.